Great. So my aim in this opening talk is just to give you a very broad overview of the epidemiology of HCC in the UK. And really I'm hoping to try and pick out those relevant aspects of the epidemiology, those relevant trends that are important to this question of HCC surveillance. So every year there are just over 3,000 cases of HCC diagnosed in England, and that represents just over half of all primary liver cancers. And HCC accounts in total for about 1% of all cancers diagnosed in England. So there are many cancers that are more common than HCC. So why is it that HCC poses such a challenge to us? Well, the first thing we have to recognize, of course, is that HCC is a growing problem. For a number of years now, we've known that the incidence of HCC and the mortality from HCC has been rising over time. So, for example, in Scotland, we have seen almost a trebling in the incidence of HCC and the mortality from HCC among Scottish males. And this is a really nice paper that was just recently published in the BMJ. The authors quantified the trends in more than 20 different cancers in the UK over the last 25 years. And you can see that liver cancer really stands out as an anomaly here. It's the only cancer for which both the incidence and mortality are increasing over time. So liver cancer is rising faster than any other cancer in the UK. And this is not just, of course, a UK-specific phenomenon. This is an issue that we're seeing globally. And by the year 2040, we're expecting there to be an additional 500,000 cases of HCC every year and 500,000 deaths from HCC every year. And most of those additional cases and additional deaths are going to be seen in higher income countries. Now, a really important point to make is that the incidence of HCC is not the same throughout the UK. It's higher in certain regions and lower in others. And particularly in areas of the north of England, the incidence is at its highest. And this is a great analysis from a paper just published in Lancet Oncology, and it shows that geographical variability in much more detail. So here the authors have quantified the probability of dying from liver cancer, lifetime probability of dying from liver cancer in 314 different districts in England. So each data point on this slide represents a different local district in England. And you can see that there's tremendous variability in the probability of liver cancer mortality, rising from about 0.5% up to in the region of 1.5%. And you can see there's a very strong correlation there, in as much as the districts that have the highest probability of dying from liver cancer are the more deprived districts, and those districts that have the lowest probability are those that are most affluent. So where does HCC come from? Well, it doesn't come out of thin air. It is a product of years and decades of fibrogenesis and sustained liver injury leading to compensated cirrhosis. And it's through compensated cirrhosis that is the main route through which HCC develops. And it follows that if we are seeing more cases of HCC and more cases of HCC death, then we're also going to be seeing more cases of cirrhosis mortality. And that is exactly what we are seeing in England and Wales. This is the rate of cirrhosis mortality over the last 20 years in England and Wales, and you can see there's a clear upward trajectory here, particularly in the last 3 years since the COVID pandemic. So what is causing people to move through this disease pathway? Well, we know that there are 3 main etiologies: MAFLD, viral hepatitis, and alcohol, and also autoimmune disease. But we need to remember that these are not mutually exclusive categories. There is crossover between them, particularly, for example, between viral hepatitis C and alcohol. And there are a couple of really important time trends that we need to pick out here that have important implications for HCC surveillance. The first is the rise of MAFLD, and the second is the decline of chronic hep C. And one of the issues with MAFLD HCC is that a greater proportion of these cases, of these HCC cases, occur at a pre-cirrhosis stage. So it follows that if we're going to be seeing more cases of MAFLD chronic liver disease over the next 10, 20 years, then we're also going to be seeing more cases of HCC occurring at a pre-cirrhosis stage. And then the other second big shift is the decline in chronic HCV. But even though chronic HCV has declined, there are actually more people living today with hep C related cirrhosis than ever before. Most of them have cured hepatitis C cirrhosis, but there are more people living with hep C cirrhosis than ever before. And at the same time, the incidence of HCC has fallen. So that means that we are having to survey more patients in order to identify fewer HCC events, and that has important resource implications. The resource implications for surveying this group have profoundly shifted in the last 10 to 20 years. So that the net effect of these trends are that compared to 20 years ago, we have more people living with chronic liver disease, we have more people living with cirrhosis, we have more HCC, and more of those HCCs are occurring at a pre-cirrhosis stage. So these changes may look modest, but they are very much at the heart, at the root of the challenges that we face with HCC surveillance. And in our meeting, we need to consider how we're going to respond to these epidemiological transitions. And this is just my final slide to say that although HCC may not be the most common type of cause of cancer in England and the UK, it is actually a very prominent cause of cancer mortality. And that's because, as we know, the prognosis following liver cancer diagnosis is very poor. 5-year survival is in the region of 20%. And in our meeting today, we need to be thinking about improving patient outcomes, but it's also about making sure we're using our surveillance resources wisely, efficiently, and judiciously. Thank you very much.
Thank